The smallest act of kindness can change a life, but sometimes it changes too. Rain poured from the dark Boston sky in relentless sheets, turning sidewalks into rivers of reflected city lights. Most people hurried past with their heads down, focused only on reaching somewhere dry. Emily Parker tightened her grip on the navy blue umbrella above her head and picked up her pace. It had been a long day at the public library. A school reading program had run late, a delivery of new books arrived behind schedule, and she still had lesson plans waiting for her apartment desk. All she wanted was a warm cup of tea and a quiet evening. Then she noticed him. The man stood alone near a bus stop at the corner of Tremont Street. He was not waiting under the shelter like everyone else. Instead, he stood a few feet away from it, completely exposed to the storm. Rain soaked through his dark coat. Water dripped from his hair, yet he barely seemed to notice. Emily slowed. There was something unusual about him. He did not look careless. He looked distracted, lost in thought, like someone carrying a burden heavier than the storm around him. She hesitated. Common sense told her to keep walking. After all, he was a stranger, a grown man, probably capable of taking care of himself. But as she continued down the sidewalk, she glanced back one more time. The man had not moved. He simply stood there staring into the distance while rain poured over him. Emily sighed softly. "You are impossible," she muttered to herself. Then she turned around. A minute later, she approached the stranger. "Excuse me." The man looked up, surprised. His eyes revealed a mixture of exhaustion and confusion, as though he had been pulled back into reality. "Yes," he asked. "You are getting completely soaked." For a moment, he looked almost amused. "I noticed." "Then why are you standing in the rain?" He glanced toward the street before answering. "Honestly, I am not sure." Emily could not help smiling. It was such an unexpected answer that she laughed softly. "Well, that might be the strangest thing I have heard all week." The stranger smiled for the first time. It transformed his face completely. Beneath the tired expression was someone warm and approachable. Someone who probably smiled often when life was not weighing him down. Emily shifted the umbrella slightly. "Here." The man looked confused. "Here what?" "Half the umbrella." He blinked. "You are offering to share your umbrella with a complete stranger? You look like you need it more than I do." For a second, he simply stared at her, as though kindness had become something unfamiliar. Then he stepped closer. "Thank you." The two of them began walking slowly down the sidewalk together. The umbrella barely covered both of them, but it was enough. Rain continued falling around them, while traffic rolled through puddles nearby. "I am Emily," she said. "Nathan." "Nice to meet you, Nathan." "Likewise." The conversation started simply. Emily talked about the library where she worked. Nathan listened carefully. He asked questions about the reading programs and the children who visited after school. Most people lost interest when she talked about books. Nathan seemed genuinely curious. "You must really enjoy your job," he said. Emily smiled. "I do. Even after a long day. Especially after a long day." Nathan looked at her thoughtfully. "That is rare." "What is?" "Meeting someone who actually likes what they do." Emily laughed. "Maybe. What about you?" The question caught him off guard. "What about me?" "Do you like your job?" Nathan hesitated. The answer was more complicated than he wanted to explain. "Sometimes." "That sounds like a no." He laughed quietly. "You ask difficult questions. Comes with working around books." For several blocks, they continued talking. The conversation felt surprisingly easy, comfortable. Neither realized how unusual that was. Emily knew nothing about Nathan's wealth, influence, or success. Nathan knew nothing about Emily beyond her kindness and her love of books. For a little while, those simple truths were enough. Eventually, they reached an intersection where their paths separated. Emily stopped. "This is me." Nathan looked almost disappointed. "Already?" "Afraid so." Rain continued falling around them. Neither moved immediately. "Thank you," Nathan said quietly. "For the umbrella." Emily smiled. "It was only an umbrella." Nathan shook his head. "I think it was more than that." Before she could respond, a black SUV turned the corner and stopped nearby. Emily barely noticed it. Nathan did. "That is my ride." "Good timing." He nodded. Then his expression softened. "I hope I see you again, Emily." She smiled politely. "Maybe Boston will make it happen." Nathan laughed. "Maybe." He stepped toward the waiting vehicle before pausing. "Keep the umbrella." Emily raised an eyebrow. "It is my umbrella." "Right." He smiled. "Then keep being the person who shares it." A moment later, he climbed into the SUV and disappeared into the rainy night. Emily watched the vehicle drive away before continuing toward her apartment. She never noticed the professional driver. She never noticed the security vehicle following behind. And she certainly never imagined the stranger she had shared an umbrella with was one of the wealthiest men in America. But inside the SUV, Nathan Cole looked back through the rain-streaked window and realized something he had not felt in years: hope. For the next several days, Emily found herself thinking about the stranger from the rain far more often than she cared to admit. It was not because he was unusually handsome, although he certainly was. It was not because of the mysterious black SUV either. Boston was full of successful professionals. No, what stayed with her was the conversation. There had been something refreshingly genuine about Nathan. He listened, really listened. Most people waited for their turn to speak. Nathan seemed interested in every answer she gave. By Thursday afternoon, Emily was shelving returned books in the children's section of the library when her coworker Sarah appeared beside her carrying a stack of novels. "You look distracted," Sarah said. Emily glanced up. "Do I? You just put a mystery novel in the gardening section." Emily laughed and corrected the mistake. "Long week." Sarah narrowed her eyes playfully. "Or interesting week." Before Emily could respond, the front doors of the library opened. Several visitors entered. One of them immediately caught her attention: Nathan. He wore a simple charcoal jacket and dark jeans. Nothing about his appearance suggested wealth or status. He looked like any ordinary visitor stopping by a neighborhood library. Yet somehow the entire room felt different the moment she saw him. Nathan spotted her almost immediately. A smile appeared on his face. "Well," Sarah whispered, "that explains everything." Emily ignored her. Nathan approached the circulation desk, carrying a small paper bag. "Hi," he said. "Hi yourself." The familiar reply made him laugh. "I was hoping I might find you here." Emily folded her arms lightly. "At the place where I told you I work?" "Good point." He held up the paper bag. "I brought a peace offering." "Peace offering?" Nathan nodded. "You shared your umbrella. I never properly thanked you." Emily looked inside the bag and found 2 pastries from a bakery several blocks away. One happened to be her favorite. "How did you know?" Nathan looked confused. "Know what?" "This is my favorite." "Lucky guess." Emily smiled. "Very lucky." During her lunch break, they sat together in a quiet corner near the library cafe. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows. Outside, the city moved at its usual pace. Inside, time seemed slower. Easier. "So," Emily said between bites of pastry, "what brings you to a library?" Nathan leaned back. "Curiosity. About books. About the woman who shares umbrellas with strangers." Emily laughed. "That is not a very convincing answer." "It is the truth." For a moment, neither spoke. Nathan studied the rows of books surrounding them. "You know, I have not been inside a public library in years." Emily looked genuinely surprised. "Really? Really? You are missing out." "Apparently." She smiled and stood. "Come with me." Nathan followed as she led him through different sections of the building. She showed him reading rooms, study areas, community spaces, and children's programs. Everywhere they went, people seemed to know Emily. Children waved enthusiastically. Parents greeted her warmly. Elderly visitors stopped to chat. Nathan noticed every interaction. "You are popular," he observed. Emily laughed. "Occupational hazard." "No," Nathan shook his head. "People trust you." The statement caught her off guard. It was not a compliment about appearance or intelligence. It felt deeper, more meaningful. Later that afternoon, a group of elementary school students arrived for a reading program. Emily immediately became busy helping organize activities. Nathan prepared to leave, but paused when he noticed several volunteers had not shown up. Without hesitation, he rolled up his sleeves. "Need help?" Emily blinked. "You want to stay?" "Why not?" For the next 2 hours, Nathan assisted wherever needed. He handed out books, helped arrange chairs, guided children toward activity stations. To Emily's surprise, he was remarkably good with people, especially children. Several young readers attached themselves to him immediately. One little boy spent 20 minutes explaining a dinosaur book in extraordinary detail, while Nathan listened as though it were the most important presentation in the world. Watching from across the room, Emily smiled. There was clearly much more to Nathan than she originally assumed. By the time the program ended, both of them looked exhausted. "Thank you," Emily said as they stacked chairs together. "Most people run away when they see 50 energetic children." Nathan laughed. I considered it. What changed your mind? He looked at her for a second before answering. You. Emily felt unexpected warmth spread through her chest. Nathan immediately looked away, almost as if the answer had escaped before he could stop it. A comfortable silence followed. As evening approached, they walked toward the library entranced together. Before leaving, Nathan reached into his pocket and removed a small folded note. What is this? Emily asked. My number. She raised an eyebrow. Very old-fashioned. I was aiming for charming. Emily smiled and accepted the paper. You almost got there. Nathan laughed. I will keep trying. As he walked away down the sidewalk, Emily watched him disappear into the crowd. She still knew almost nothing about his real life. She did not know he owned a technology empire worth billions of dollars. She did not know financial magazines regularly placed him on their covers. She did not know entire companies changed direction based on his decisions. All she knew was that a stranger she met during a storm had somehow become the most interesting part of her week. And for Nathan, that feeling was already becoming something much bigger. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan became a familiar presence at the library. He never announced his visits in advance. Sometimes he appeared with coffee for the staff. Other times he arrived carrying boxes of donated books or offering to help prepare for community events. Emily found herself looking toward the entrance whenever the front doors opened. She told herself it was simple curiosity. Sarah disagreed completely. You are smiling again, Sarah observed one afternoon. Emily glanced up from a stack of returned books. I smile all the time. Not like that. Emily rolled her eyes. You are impossible. Sarah laughed. And you are interested. Before Emily could argue, a familiar voice interrupted them. Am I arriving at a bad time? Nathan stood beside the circulation desk, holding a cardboard box filled with children's books. Emily smiled despite herself. Apparently right on time. Nathan spent the afternoon helping organize materials for the library's upcoming children's reading festival. What began as a one-time volunteer effort had somehow turned into a routine. The children loved him. Parents trusted him. Even the librarians who were usually skeptical of newcomers welcomed him warmly. Watching him interact with everyone remained one of Emily's favorite surprises. There was nothing forced about his kindness. It felt natural, genuine, as though helping people simply made him happy. Late that afternoon, Emily and Nathan worked side by side, decorating a reading area for the weekend program. Colorful banners hung above bookshelves. Small tables were arranged for activities. The room slowly transformed into something magical. You are good at this, Emily said. Nathan looked genuinely confused. At hanging paper decorations? At caring? The compliment caught him off guard. For a second, he seemed unsure how to respond. I could say the same about you. Emily smiled softly. That sounds suspiciously rehearsed. It was not. His answer arrived so quickly that she believed him. A comfortable silence settled between them. The kind of silence that only exists when two people enjoy simply being near one another. As the afternoon sunlight faded outside the windows, the reading room emptied. Most staff members headed home. Emily remained behind to finish preparations. Nathan stayed as well. You know, Emily said while arranging books on a display shelf, most people would have stopped volunteering after the first day. Nathan leaned against a nearby table. Most people are smarter than I am. Emily laughed. There it is again. What? That answer? Which answer? The one that makes it impossible to know when you are joking. Nathan smiled. Maybe I like keeping some mystery alive. Emily shook her head. You definitely do. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Something changed. Neither looked away immediately. The room suddenly felt smaller, quieter. The air between them carried a new awareness that had not existed before. Not uncomfortable, just undeniable. Nathan cleared his throat first. I was wondering something. That sounds dangerous. Probably. Emily smiled. Go ahead. Nathan hesitated. Would you like to have dinner with me sometime? The question hung gently between them. Simple. Honest. Emily felt her heart skip unexpectedly. She had known this moment might come. Still, hearing it aloud felt different. Real. Are you asking because you need help shelving books? She teased. Nathan laughed. No, because I am very good at shelving books. I know. His smile softened. I am asking because I enjoy spending time with you. Emily looked down briefly before meeting his eyes again. Then yes. Nathan's expression brightened instantly. Yes. Yes. The answer felt surprisingly easy. Natural. like something that had been quietly approaching for weeks. As they finished cleaning up the reading room, neither could stop smiling. Outside, evening settled across Boston. Streetlights illuminated sidewalks. Traffic flowed beneath the glow of city buildings. Everything appeared ordinary. Yet for both of them, something important had changed. Neither realized how much. Later that evening, Nathan sat alone inside the back seat of his SUV as it moved through the city. Across from him sat Daniel Mercer, his longtime chief operating officer. Daniel studied him carefully. "You are smiling." Nathan looked out the window. "Am I?" "Constantly." Nathan laughed. "That bad?" "Worse." Daniel folded his arms. "I have known you 15 years. I have never seen you cancel meetings to volunteer at a library." Nathan said nothing. "You really like her?" The statement was not a question. Nathan finally nodded. "I do." Daniel smiled. "Then I hope she knows who she is dealing with." Nathan's expression shifted slightly. The comment lingered longer than expected. Because the truth was simple. Emily still knew almost nothing about his real life. And every day that passed made the secret more difficult to keep. Yet for now, Nathan pushed the thought aside. Tomorrow would bring dinner. Another conversation. Another chance to be with the woman who somehow made the rest of the world feel quieter. Neither of them realized that the secret surrounding Nathan's identity was already moving closer to the surface. And when it finally emerged, it would test everything they were beginning to build together. The following week felt almost perfect. That alone should have worried Nathan. Life rarely allowed perfect moments to last for long. His dinner with Emily turned into another dinner, then weekend walks through Boston, then long conversations that stretched far beyond midnight. Every day, they seemed to discover something new about each other. Emily learned Nathan loved architecture and old bookstores. Nathan learned Emily collected handwritten notes left inside used books. Their worlds felt different, yet somehow they fit together with surprising ease. One crisp Saturday morning, they wandered through a waterfront market overlooking Boston Harbor. Food vendors lined the sidewalks. Street musicians played nearby. The air carried the scent of coffee and fresh pastries. Emily laughed as Nathan unsuccessfully attempted to win a stuffed animal at a carnival game. "You are terrible at this," she informed him. Nathan shook his head. "I prefer the term strategically challenged. The game was designed for children." "That makes this worse." Emily laughed again, and Nathan found himself smiling simply because she was happy. Moments like these felt increasingly important. More important than meetings. More important than business deals. More important than almost anything. Unfortunately, reality continued waiting just beyond the edges of their growing happiness. As they sat near the harbor eating lunch, Nathan's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. The expression on his face changed instantly. Emily noticed. "Everything okay?" Nathan hesitated. "Work. Important." "Unfortunately." He stood and stepped several feet away before answering. Emily watched from a distance. His posture changed completely. The relaxed, easygoing man she knew suddenly looked focused, authoritative, confident. The conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. When he returned, his smile looked forced. "Sorry." Emily shrugged. "Comes with having a job." Nathan laughed softly. Something like that. Yet the moment stayed with her. It was not the first time. Over the previous weeks, Nathan occasionally disappeared to take calls. Sometimes black SUVs appeared unexpectedly. Once she spotted him speaking with several people wearing business attire outside the library. Another time she noticed a newspaper photograph partially visible inside his briefcase before he quickly closed it. None of these things seemed alarming individually. Together, however, they created questions. Questions Nathan never fully answered. Several days later, Emily arrived early at the library to prepare for a literacy fundraiser. Volunteers moved through the building arranging decorations and tables. Shortly before noon, Nathan arrived carrying several large boxes of supplies. "Perfect timing," Emily said. "I have 100 jobs waiting." "Only 100?" Nathan asked. "I expected more." For the next few hours they worked side by side. Everything felt normal again. Then another surprise appeared. A luxury vehicle stopped outside the library entrance. A sharply dressed woman stepped out carrying a tablet computer. She entered the building and immediately began searching the room. The moment she spotted Nathan, she walked directly toward him. "Mr. Cole." Emily froze. Nathan's expression tightened almost instantly. "Not now, Victoria. I am sorry, but the board meeting cannot be delayed any longer." Emily looked between them. Board meeting? Victoria seemed to notice her for the first time. Good afternoon. Nathan quickly stepped forward. Victoria, this is Emily. The woman offered a polite smile. It is a pleasure. Then she turned back to Nathan. The investors are waiting. Emily watched the exchange carefully. Nathan looked uncomfortable. More uncomfortable than she had ever seen him. I will call later, he said firmly. Victoria nodded and left without another word. The moment she disappeared, silence settled between them. Emily folded her arms lightly. Board meeting? Nathan looked away briefly. Something like that. You keep saying things like that. Nathan sighed. Emily. No, seriously. She smiled, though curiosity lingered beneath it. Who are you? Nathan laughed softly, but the question clearly affected him. Just Nathan. I do not think that is entirely true anymore. The words were playful, yet both felt the weight behind them. For a moment Nathan seemed ready to say something more. Something important. Instead, his phone vibrated again. The interruption arrived at exactly the wrong time. Nathan glanced at the screen, and frustration crossed his face. Emily noticed immediately. You should answer. I would rather stay here. Nathan. He smiled reluctantly. You are impossible. I work around books. We already established that. Nathan laughed. Then he answered the call and stepped away once more. Emily watched him through the library windows. The mystery surrounding him seemed larger than ever. She trusted him. She genuinely cared about him. Yet she could not ignore the feeling that an entire part of his life remained hidden behind carefully chosen answers and unfinished explanations. Across the street, Nathan ended the call and stared toward the library entrance. He knew the truth could not stay hidden forever. Every day made that more obvious. Every day made it harder to explain why he had waited so long. And somewhere deep inside, he feared the moment Emily finally discovered who he really was. The truth arrived on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. There was no dramatic warning, no mysterious message, no carefully planned revelation. It happened the way life often changes forever, completely unexpectedly. Emily had left the library during her lunch break to pick up supplies for an upcoming literacy event. The day was bright and unusually warm for late autumn. Downtown Boston buzzed with activity. Office workers filled sidewalks. Tourists gathered near intersections. Street vendors served coffee and sandwiches to long lines of customers. Emily carried 2 shopping bags as she crossed into the financial district. Her phone vibrated with a text from Sarah asking about decorations for the event. Smiling, Emily typed a quick reply while waiting for a traffic signal. Then she heard a familiar name. Nathan Cole announces expansion plans. The words came from a massive digital billboard mounted above a nearby building. Emily looked up automatically. Her entire world seemed to stop moving. The face on the screen belonged to Nathan. Not someone who looked similar. Not a distant resemblance. Nathan, the man she met during the storm. The man who volunteered at the library. The man who brought pastries and helped children choose books. The man she was slowly falling for. A professional interviewer appeared beside him on the screen. Headlines filled the display. Technology billionaire Nathan Cole. CEO of Cole Innovations. Philanthropist. Entrepreneur. Industry leader. Emily stared in disbelief. Around her, people continued walking. Cars continued moving. The city continued functioning. Yet she could barely hear any of it. Her mind replayed countless moments from the past several weeks. The black SUVs. The mysterious phone calls. The business meetings. Victoria calling him Mr. Cole. The unanswered questions. Suddenly everything made sense. Every strange detail connected at once. No, she whispered. No way. Yet the evidence towered above her on a screen 3 stories high. There was no denying it. Nathan was not simply successful. He was one of the most recognizable business leaders in the country. Emily stood frozen for nearly a minute. Then she pulled out her phone. Her hands trembled slightly as she searched his name. Hundreds of results appeared instantly. Magazine covers, interviews, news articles, awards, conference appearances, financial reports, photographs from around the world. Every search result confirmed the same unbelievable reality. Nathan Cole was worth billions. Emily felt a mixture of shock, confusion, embarrassment, and disappointment. Not because Nathan was wealthy. Wealth itself did not bother her. What hurt was the silence, the omission, the fact that she had learned the truth from a billboard instead of from him. That evening, Nathan arrived at the library carrying a small box of donated books. The moment he entered, he knew something was wrong. Emily looked up from her desk briefly before returning to her work. No smile, no greeting, no warmth, just distance. Nathan's stomach immediately tightened. Emily. She closed the folder in front of her. How was your day, Mr. Cole? The words landed like ice. Nathan slowly exhaled. You know? Apparently, everyone knows. Several seconds passed. The library suddenly felt much quieter than usual. Emily, I can explain. She nodded. I am sure you can. Nathan stepped closer. Please let me. When? She asked softly. When were you planning to tell me? He opened his mouth, but no answer came. Because the honest answer was difficult. Every day he waited made the conversation harder. Every day he convinced himself there would be a better moment. A better opportunity. A better explanation. That is what I thought, Emily said quietly. Nathan looked genuinely miserable. I never wanted to lie to you. But you did. I never lied about who I am. Emily shook her head. You left out the biggest part. Nathan had no defense against that. Because she was right. The silence between them felt heavier than any argument. Finally, Emily spoke again. Do you know what hurts? Nathan listened carefully. For weeks I thought you trusted me. Her voice remained calm, which somehow made the words even more painful. I told you everything about my life. Nathan looked down briefly. Emily, you knew where I worked. You knew my dreams. You knew my fears. She swallowed hard. And I knew almost nothing about you. Nathan's heart sank. Every sentence landed exactly where she intended. Not with anger. With honesty. And honesty was harder to escape. I care about you, he said quietly. That part was real. Emily looked at him for several seconds. Tears threatened to appear, but she refused to let them. I believe that. Nathan felt a small flicker of hope. Then she continued. But right now I need space. The hope disappeared instantly. Emily, please. Her voice remained gentle. Just give me some time. Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to explain, wanted to tell her that the woman who shared an umbrella had become the most important person in his life. But he saw the hurt in her eyes and stopped himself. Slowly he nodded. Okay. For the first time since the rainstorm, Nathan turned and walked away from her. Emily watched him leave. Part of her wanted to stop him. Another part felt betrayed, confused, overwhelmed. As the library doors closed behind him, both of them realized the easy happiness of the past few weeks had come to an end. And neither knew whether what they had built together would survive what came next. The days that followed felt longer than they should have. For Emily, the library became both a refuge and a reminder. Every bookshelf seemed connected to a memory. Every reading table carried traces of conversations she and Nathan had shared. The children's corner reminded her of the afternoon he spent helping young readers choose books. The cafe reminded her of pastries and easy laughter. Even the front entrance reminded her of the countless times she had looked up hoping to see him walk through the doors. Now those doors opened dozens of times each day, but never for him. Nathan kept his promise. He gave her space. No surprise visits. No messages. No attempts to explain himself further. Part of Emily appreciated the respect. Another part missed him more than she wanted to admit. One rainy evening, she sat alone in her apartment with a cup of tea and her laptop. The city lights shimmered outside her window while raindrops traced paths across the glass. Without fully intending to, she typed Nathan Cole into a search engine again. Hundreds of articles appeared. This time she read them carefully. She expected to find arrogance, entitlement, stories about a billionaire disconnected from ordinary people. Instead, she found something else. Article after article described charitable programs, educational grants, public libraries receiving support, scholarships for students, and technology initiatives for underserved communities. There were interviews discussing literacy and access to education. There were photographs of Nathan visiting schools without media coverage. One article described how he anonymously funded library renovations years earlier. Emily stared at the screen. None of this matched the image she had constructed after discovering the truth. Why did you not tell me? She whispered softly. The question lingered long after she closed the laptop. Across town, Nathan sat inside his office on the top floor of Cole Innovations headquarters. The city skyline stretched beyond massive windows. Usually the view impressed visitors. Tonight he barely noticed it. A stack of reports sat untouched on his desk. Daniel Mercer entered carrying several folders. "You are ignoring work again." Nathan glanced up. "I am working." Daniel looked around. "You have been staring out that window for 20 minutes. Nathan smiled faintly. "Maybe I needed a break." Daniel sat across from him. "How is Emily?" The question immediately erased what little humor remained. "I would not know. Still no contact." Nathan shook his head. Daniel studied him for a moment. "You care about her?" "Yes." The answer came instantly. Daniel nodded. "Then perhaps give her time to remember who you actually are." Nathan looked toward the skyline again. "What if all she remembers is what I hid?" Several days later, another problem arrived. The Boston Public Library system announced significant budget reductions due to unexpected funding shortages. Smaller neighborhood branches would face operational cuts. Community programs would be reduced. Staffing concerns quickly followed. The announcement spread rapidly through local news outlets. Emily learned the details during an emergency staff meeting. The room felt unusually tense. Administrators explained the situation carefully. Nothing was finalized yet, but possibilities included reduced services and even branch closures. As the meeting ended, worried conversations filled the room. Emily remained seated long after most people left. The library was more than a workplace. It was a cornerstone of the community. Children learned there. Families gathered there. Elderly residents found companionship there. The thought of losing programs or closing locations felt heartbreaking. That evening, she walked through the nearly empty building after closing time. The silence felt different than usual. Heavier. Uncertain. She paused beside a bulletin board displaying photographs from recent community events. Several pictures included Nathan helping children during the reading festival. Emily looked away quickly, yet the image stayed with her. The next morning, local newspapers carried additional details. Budget concerns appeared worse than originally expected. Community members began organizing meetings and petitions. Emily immediately volunteered to help. If the library needed support, she would do everything possible to protect it. What she did not know was that Nathan saw the same headlines before sunrise. By 8 o'clock that morning, he had already requested detailed reports from his foundation team. By noon, he was reviewing financial projections. By evening, he was studying every available option. Daniel entered his office carrying updated information. "You are serious about this?" Nathan looked up. "About what?" "Saving the library." Nathan leaned back. "Libraries matter." Daniel smiled knowingly. "That is not the only reason." Nathan did not bother denying it. Because the truth was obvious. The library mattered because Emily mattered. Yet despite every resource available to him, Nathan hesitated. He knew any direct involvement right now could make things worse. Emily needed solutions, not pressure. Community support, not billionaire intervention. He had to be careful, thoughtful, patient. Late that night, Emily left another planning meeting and stepped outside into cool autumn air. The streets glistened from a recent rainfall. She opened her navy blue umbrella and began walking home. Halfway down the block, she stopped. For just a moment, she remembered the night everything started. A stranger standing alone in the rain. A simple decision to share an umbrella. A conversation that changed both their lives. Emily looked up toward the dark sky and realized something uncomfortable. Despite the hurt, despite the disappointment, despite everything that had happened, she still missed him. And somewhere else in the city, Nathan was thinking exactly the same thing. The threat to the library became impossible to ignore. What had started as concerning headlines evolved into something far more serious. Community meetings filled beyond capacity. Parents worried about after-school programs. Teachers worried about educational resources. Elderly residents worried about losing one of the few places where they still gathered regularly. Every day brought new uncertainty. For Emily, the situation felt personal. The library was not simply a building filled with books. It was a living part of the neighborhood. She saw children discover their first favorite stories there. She watched job seekers use public computers to rebuild their lives. She helped lonely visitors find connection through community events. Losing any part of that mission felt unacceptable. Determined to fight for the future of the library, Emily threw herself into organizing support efforts. Volunteers distributed petitions throughout Boston. Local businesses displayed flyers. Community leaders scheduled public forums. What began as concern slowly transformed into a movement. One Saturday morning, Emily stood outside the library helping coordinate a community outreach event. Folding tables lined the sidewalk. Volunteers collected signatures. Families stopped to learn more about the funding crisis. The response was encouraging, but Emily knew goodwill alone would not solve the problem. The budget gap remained enormous. "We are making progress," Sarah said while reviewing a clipboard. Emily nodded. "I know." That did not sound convincing. Emily smiled faintly. "I am trying to stay realistic." Sarah studied her for a moment. "You are carrying this entire situation on your shoulders. Someone has to do something. You are." Sarah lowered her voice slightly. "And maybe you do not have to do it alone." Emily knew exactly what she meant. Nathan. The name lingered between them without being spoken. Emily looked away. "This is not about him." "Maybe not." Sarah shrugged. "But I think you miss him." Emily did not answer, because arguing would have been pointless. She did miss him, more than she wanted to admit. Yet every time she thought about reaching out, she remembered the billboard, the secrecy, the unanswered questions. Across the city, Nathan followed every development surrounding the library. His team prepared detailed reports. Financial analysts identified solutions. Legal advisors reviewed partnership opportunities. Nathan could solve the funding problem almost immediately if he wanted to. Yet he remained cautious. He understood something most people overlooked. This was not about writing a check. It was about protecting a community without turning the solution into a publicity event. One evening, Nathan attended a private meeting with leaders from his charitable foundation. Large screens displayed financial projections and program impact assessments. "The numbers are clear," one advisor explained. "A strategic investment could stabilize the entire library system." Nathan nodded. "How quickly?" "Immediately." Another advisor leaned forward. "The question is visibility." Nathan looked up. "Explain." "Any direct involvement from Cole Innovations becomes a headline." Nathan already knew that. The moment his name appeared publicly, attention would shift. Reporters would focus on him instead of the library. Community efforts might become overshadowed by the story of a billionaire stepping in to save the day. That was exactly what he wanted to avoid. Later that night, Nathan stood alone in his office, staring out across the Boston skyline. The city lights stretched endlessly into the distance. Somewhere beyond those lights was Emily. Somewhere she was still fighting for something she loved. The realization settled heavily in his chest. Daniel entered carrying updated reports. "I think I found a solution." Nathan turned. "What kind?" Daniel placed a folder on the desk. "A community partnership model. Anonymous foundation support. Local leadership remains visible. The library stays the focus." Nathan reviewed the proposal carefully. As he read, a slow smile appeared. "This could work. I thought you would like it." Nathan nodded. "Start the process." Meanwhile, Emily attended another public forum at a neighborhood community center. The room overflowed with concerned residents. Speakers shared stories about how libraries changed their lives. Students described educational opportunities. Parents discussed literacy programs. The emotional impact filled every corner of the building. As the evening progressed, a city official stepped to the microphone. The room immediately quieted. "I have an update regarding potential funding partnerships." Curious murmurs spread through the audience. Emily listened carefully. Several organizations have expressed interest in supporting long-term preservation efforts. Hope flickered throughout the room. The official continued. "Nothing is finalized yet. However, discussions are moving in a positive direction." Applause broke out almost instantly. Emily felt her heart lift for the first time in weeks. It was not a solution yet, but it was something. After the meeting ended, she stepped outside into the cool evening air. The streets glistened beneath city lights. Autumn leaves drifted across the sidewalk. For a moment, she simply stood there breathing deeply. Then she noticed something across the street. A familiar dark SUV parked beneath a row of trees. Emily froze. The vehicle remained stationary for several seconds before slowly pulling away. She never saw who was inside, but somehow she knew. Nathan had not forgotten the library. And despite the distance between them, a part of her suddenly wondered whether he had been helping all along. For the first time since discovering the truth, Emily allowed herself to believe that maybe the story between them was not over yet. The breakthrough arrived on a cold Thursday evening. For weeks, uncertainty had dominated every conversation surrounding the library. Community members continued fighting. Volunteers continued organizing events. City officials continued searching for answers. Yet nobody expected the announcement that suddenly changed everything. Emily was helping stack chairs after another public planning meeting when her phone began vibrating repeatedly. Messages appeared one after another. Sarah was calling. Several co-workers were texting. Community volunteers were sharing links. Confused, Emily opened the first message she received. A major local news outlet had just published a breaking story. A newly established educational preservation initiative had committed enough funding to stabilize the city's threatened library programs for years. Emily stared at the screen. Then she read the article again. The funding structure focused on long-term sustainability rather than temporary relief. Local leadership would remain independent. Community programs would expand instead of shrink. Most importantly, neighborhood branches facing closure would remain open. Cheers erupted throughout the room as more people read the news. Volunteers embraced one another. Several librarians began crying openly. Months of anxiety suddenly gave way to relief. Emily felt tears gathering in her own eyes. The library would survive. The children would keep their programs. The community would keep its gathering place. It felt almost impossible to believe. "We did it," Sarah whispered. Emily nodded. "We actually did it." Yet as she continued reading the article, one detail caught her attention. The preservation initiative was supported by a private educational foundation that chose not to seek public recognition. Anonymous funding, anonymous leadership, anonymous support. Somehow, Emily immediately thought of Nathan. The possibility lingered in the back of her mind throughout the following days. Then another announcement arrived. A citywide community celebration would be held to officially launch the preservation program and thank everyone involved. Local leaders, educators, volunteers, and residents were invited. Emily planned to attend with her coworkers. She expected speeches, presentations, and community recognition. Nothing more. On the evening of the event, hundreds of people gathered inside a historic civic auditorium near downtown Boston. The atmosphere felt completely different from the tense meetings of previous weeks. Laughter replaced anxiety. Hope replaced uncertainty. Banners celebrating literacy and education decorated the room. Families filled rows of seats. Children carried handmade signs thanking librarians and volunteers. Emily sat near the front with Sarah and several co-workers. For the first time in months, she felt genuinely relaxed. The program began with local officials discussing the importance of community resources. Educators shared stories about students whose lives had been changed through library programs. Volunteers received recognition for their dedication. The audience responded with repeated applause. Then the master of ceremonies approached the podium once again. "There is one more person we would like to acknowledge tonight." Curious murmurs spread through the room. The individual who helped create the partnership that made this preservation initiative possible. Emily looked toward the stage. Something inside her already knew what was coming. Although he initially requested complete anonymity, we convinced him that this community deserved the opportunity to say thank you. The large screen behind the stage illuminated. A familiar face appeared. "Nathan!" Gasps spread across the auditorium. Emily froze. The master of ceremonies continued. "Please welcome Nathan Cole." The audience immediately erupted into applause. Nathan walked onto the stage dressed in a simple dark suit. No dramatic entrance. No celebrity presentation. Just the man Emily had met beneath a shared umbrella months earlier. He looked slightly uncomfortable standing in front of so much attention. That alone made Emily smile despite herself. Nathan approached the microphone and waited for the applause to fade. "Thank you," he began. "But honestly, this recognition belongs elsewhere." His voice remained calm and sincere. "The people who saved these libraries are sitting throughout this room." More applause followed. Nathan continued. "I have spent most of my life building companies and solving business problems. Yet the most important lesson I learned this year came from someone who works in a library." Emily felt her breath catch. The room grew noticeably quieter. Nathan's eyes moved across the audience until they found her. "Several months ago, during a rainstorm, a stranger shared an umbrella with me." Gentle laughter spread throughout the crowd. Nathan smiled. "She did not know who I was. She did not care who I was." Emily could feel hundreds of people turning toward her. She simply saw someone standing alone in the rain and decided to help. Nathan paused briefly. "That moment reminded me that kindness creates change far greater than wealth ever could." Silence filled the auditorium. the kind of silence that exists when people feel something genuine. Nathan stepped away from the podium. Then, to Emily's complete surprise, he walked off the stage and into the audience, straight toward her. The room watched every step. Emily's heart pounded harder with each passing second. When Nathan finally stopped in front of her, his expression carried the same warmth she remembered from the very beginning. "Hi yourself," he said softly. Emily laughed through unexpected tears. For the first time in weeks, the distance between them disappeared. And deep down, both of them knew the most important conversation of their lives was about to begin. For a few seconds after Nathan spoke, the crowded auditorium seemed to disappear. Emily heard distant applause. She saw people smiling around them. Yet her attention remained fixed entirely on the man standing in front of her. The same man she met during a rainstorm. The same man who volunteered at the library, listened to her stories, and somehow became part of her life before she even realized it. Nathan offered a small nervous smile. "Would you walk with me?" Emily looked at him for a moment before nodding. Together, they slipped quietly from the auditorium while the celebration continued behind them. Outside, cool evening air greeted them. The city glowed beneath thousands of lights. Traffic moved through downtown Boston while distant sounds drifted through the night. For several moments, neither spoke. Finally, Nathan broke the silence. "I missed you." Emily looked down briefly. "I missed you too." The honesty surprised both of them. Nathan exhaled slowly, as though releasing weeks of tension. "Emily, I know I hurt you." She nodded. "You did. And you had every right to be angry." "I was not angry." Nathan looked confused. "No." Emily shook her head. "I was disappointed." Somehow that answer felt worse. Nathan lowered his eyes. "That is fair." They continued walking along a quiet street lined with autumn trees. Leaves drifted across the sidewalk beneath streetlights. The city felt calmer here. More private. "Why did you not tell me?" Emily finally asked. Nathan had rehearsed countless explanations during sleepless nights. Yet now, standing beside her, only the truth felt appropriate. "Because I liked who I was when I was with you." Emily glanced toward him. Nathan continued. "Most people know exactly who I am before they ever meet me. They have opinions, expectations, assumptions." He smiled sadly. "You did not." Emily listened quietly. "When we met in the rain, you treated me like a normal person." "You are a normal person." Nathan laughed softly. "Thank you." His expression became serious again. "I should have told you sooner. Every day I waited made it harder. Then I convinced myself there would be a better moment." Emily nodded slowly. "I think I understand that now." Nathan stopped walking. "You do?" "I spent weeks reading about you." Nathan blinked. "That sounds terrifying." Emily laughed despite herself. "A little." Then her smile softened. "I learned things you never told me." Nathan looked uncertain. "Good things or bad things?" "Mostly good." For the first time that evening, genuine hope appeared in his eyes. Emily continued. "You support libraries, education programs, scholarships." She shook her head. "You help people without telling anyone." Nathan shrugged. "Some things do not need publicity." "Exactly." Emily smiled. "Which is probably why you wanted the preservation project to stay anonymous." Nathan looked away briefly. The library deserved the attention. Not me. The answer confirmed everything she had begun to suspect. Silence settled comfortably between them. Not the painful silence from weeks earlier. A different kind. One filled with understanding. Eventually, they reached a small park overlooking the harbor. Benches faced the water. Reflections danced across the dark surface below. Nathan reached into the inside pocket of his coat. Emily immediately recognized what appeared in his hand. The navy blue umbrella. The very same umbrella from the night they met. Her eyes widened. "You kept it?" Nathan smiled. "Actually, I borrowed it." Emily laughed. "For several months. I was hoping you would not notice." She shook her head, smiling through tears. Nathan carefully opened the umbrella even though no rain was falling. The familiar navy fabric stretched above them. Suddenly, they were standing exactly as they had on that first night. Side by side beneath the same shelter. The same symbol that started everything. "Do you remember what you told me?" Nathan asked quietly. Emily thought for a moment. "Probably something embarrassing. You said everybody needs help sometimes." Emily smiled softly. "That sounds like me." Nathan nodded. It changed something. His voice grew more emotional. "I had spent years solving problems with money, influence, and business decisions. Then a stranger reminded me that kindness matters more. Emily felt tears gathering again. Nathan took a small step closer. You changed my life that night. The harbor breeze moved gently around them. City lights reflected in the water. Everything felt still, meaningful, real. Nathan, Emily whispered. He met her eyes. I do not care about your money. I know. I care about honesty. I know that too. Emily smiled. Good. Nathan laughed softly. Does that mean I still have a chance? She pretended to think about it. Maybe. Maybe. A very good chance. Relief and happiness crossed his face simultaneously. Then, to Emily's complete surprise, Nathan lowered himself onto one knee. She stared in shock. Nathan. He smiled nervously. I had a speech prepared. Of course you did. It was much better than what I am about to say. Emily laughed through tears. Nathan held out a small ring box. Emily Parker, you shared an umbrella with a stranger when nobody else stopped. You taught me what kindness looks like. You reminded me what matters. You made every success feel meaningful because I finally had someone worth sharing it with. His voice trembled slightly. Will you marry me? Tears rolled freely down Emily's cheeks. The answer arrived instantly. Yes. Nathan closed his eyes briefly in relief before standing. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the harbor lights sparkled behind them. The future stretched wide open ahead. Months earlier, one simple decision beneath a storm had connected two strangers from completely different worlds. In the end, it was never wealth that changed their lives. It was kindness, a shared umbrella, a second chance, and a love built on seeing the person beneath the title.